you for joining us for today's chat. Now, when you think about leaders, be they world leaders or leaders in the organization or in society you work with and are part of, what attributes do you usually reference when you watch or hear of leaders in the news or those that you personally know? Powerful, tough, firm, visionary, demanding, no nonsense. Now, let's look at this from a different angle. If you are a leader, what does your team say about you and the sort of leader that you are? How about kind? What if your subordinates and your colleagues said you were a kind leader? Today, we explore kindness and leadership. And I think you would agree that when we talk about leaders, we barely ever talk about kindness. We may equate kindness with being soft or who wants to be known as a pushover, in fact. Some may even see kindness and leadership as being like oil and water. But is it? Well, sitting across from me is Professor Lalit Johri. Not only does he have lots to say about kindness in leadership, he's even co-written a book about it titled Kindness in Leadership. Professor Johri is Senior Fellow in International Business at Said Business School at the University of Oxford, where he's also Director of the Oxford Advanced Management and Leadership Program. Professor Lalit Johri, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Stanley, for the lovely introduction.
I'm excited about our conversation today because oftentimes when we talk about leadership, kindness does not figure nowhere closer to the subject matter. But here we are with this little time that we can share talking about kindness in leadership. Now, when we talk about the world that we live in today, where power play is rife and, toughness is played up and glorified, yet here you are preaching kindness in leadership. What led you to focus on kindness?
First of all, Stanley, you're right. The public narrative on leadership is very much characterized by the words that you use, like power and financial performance and growing big corporations. And my own interest in this field of kindness arose from a very beautiful conversation I had with one of my colleagues, Mrs. Gay Haskins, who was the Dean of Executive Education at London Business School. And then she joined my school and we were having lunch. And she said, Lalit, I have been talking to one of our student, Mike, who's one of the vice chancellors of a university in UK and a student of philosophy. And we are going to write a book on kindness and explore whether kindness can address some of the difficult things that humanity is experiencing. And she says, Lalit, would you like to join our team? I said, why me? So they said, no, we would like you to come in because you can help us undertaking research at the global level. And you can also help us to expand our perspectives from an organizational viewpoint on leadership, because Mike took the philosophical route. He went into all the religions of the world and what great philosophers had said. Mrs. Haskins was more in terms of the women leaders. She was more into kindness and leadership at the board level, whereas I was looking at the CEOs and very senior leaders in different countries. So it was also appealing to the fact that when I reflected on my own life, I suddenly realized that to a great measure, my own sense of being who I am and why I am is the characterization of the kindness of hundreds of family members and friends and teachers and people who have been always kind to me.
It was a topic that resonated with you.
Absolutely. It absolutely resonated, not just in terms of experience, but also when I started to look for some of the initial examples, I found that there are very strong contrasting implications in terms of leaders who were kind or kinder than many other leaders who were not so kind to their constituents.
Now, kindness often in the business world, on the corporate scheme of things, is often seen to be a weakness. But here we are considering kindness as a trait that all leaders should have. What would you say to those who say kindness is nothing? It's a weakness that leaders should not possess, should not demonstrate.
Definitely, kindness is seen as a compromise. It is seen as the weakness on the part of a leader because, once again, the public narrative and the media narrative particularly about kindness is somebody who's like a military general, always going for the kill, playing big number games, trying to dominate, climb up the peak before anybody else could. But the question is, once you have climbed up the peak, you have satisfied your personal ego. What is next?
Then what?
When next day you see in the media that your organization is being criticized for your own pursuit of self-interest in terms of maximizing the goals of the shareholders, the value creation for the shareholders have led to the massive manifestations of stresses, inequalities in the society. That's where the element of kindness comes in. Let me take you back to the 2008-2009 crisis. And now the evidence shows, and it was our Queen who asked this question, that can somebody explain to me that what is the real reason behind the 2008-2009 financial meltdown? Nobody had a real answer until researchers got down to find out the reasons, and it turned out to be excessive pursuit of self-interest for financial benefits. And now increasingly we are seeing that the scale and scope and the nature of globalization since 91 has resulted into greater degree of inequality. So I would say leadership as it has been practiced during the last few decades, indeed, it has created wealth. It has given us new technologies, which stands to benefit us in terms of health, education, welfare. But it has also created multiple stress points in the society, be it the economic inequalities, be it the adverse impact on environment, be it the changing nature of the employment and labor markets.
Right. So you're saying that it's now become a situation where it's about I, me, and my rather than a group of people or an organization or a society or a community that can benefit from the way leadership is brought on.
Absolutely. And one way to phrase it would be that if leaders of the organizations focus on results and not on the impact of the results, then you are going to create problems for the society, because good results are not always necessarily in the interest of the society from an impact perspective.
Impact of the results. Well, here we are in conversation with Professor Lalit Johri, and he is from the University of Oxford, specifically the Syed Business School, and we're talking about kindness in leadership. Is there room? For sure, there is room, and in fact, we are finding out more about whether or not there is increasingly a void of kindness in leadership. Would you say that this is a trend that you're seeing, that there is a void in leadership across different stratas of society and business and politics even?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, when we started the research, it did show us that there are both types of leaders and organizations. There are leaders who tend to be more inclusive, more integrated to the society. They understand themselves as leaders in terms of the purpose. They understand the purpose of the organization, and they understand what is good for the society.
Professor, I'd also want to, if I may, find out if you might have any concrete case studies of organizations where you have seen either leadership without kindness happening in that organization, in that environment, or organizations that actually have a lot of kindness demonstrated through the way they lead, and you've seen positive results coming out from that.
Kindness doesn't necessarily mean a very sophisticated menu of actions or behavioral stance. A simple idea like being respectful in itself is an act of kindness. And kindness is like boomerang. Kindness begets kindness. That means if I'm kind to somebody without any self-interest on my part, then the recipient of the kindness is going to be kind to me, maybe in a different situation, in a different way.
Right, reciprocity.
Reciprocity is there. I mean, I can recall so many examples from Turkey, from even big corporations like Unilever. Paul Polman, who was former CEO, who left the CEO's office, I think about beginning of this year. He actually laid the foundations of a very inclusive, highly integrated type of organization where they address social inequalities, economic inequalities, and environmental issues as part of the core business model of their organization. And they created what they called as the purpose-led brands. And the evidence shows that the purpose-led brands in Unilever have outgrown those brands which lacked any purpose from the societal perspective. We have examples. So take, for example, China. When there was an earthquake in one of the provinces, the CEO of the insurance company, he overruled the concerns of the administrators and asked the senior executives to go with financial support and help the people, the insurees who were affected during the earthquake. So here again, you can see that kindness takes precedence over corporate protocols and practices. We had a fantastic example in Bangladesh where the founder CEO ensured nutrition first, worker productivity second. And hundreds and thousands of workers working in this garment factory, exporting garments and providing beautiful clothes to the people around the world, were served nice, nutritive meals. We had an example of a Sri Lankan company in the power sector where an incident where the employee's father suffered from cardiac arrest and requested the company to give him some financial advance so that the father can be admitted to the ICU. But the company did not have any policy to support the parents suffering from such extreme health conditions. So the CEO was so nice and kind. He immediately convened the top leaders within the company over telephone. It was Friday evening. And between them, they all decided that we will give money, although company did not have any policy. They put in their personal funds, supported the admission of the father of this employee. The father was saved. And guess what happens? This act on the part of senior leadership team became an informal corporate practice in the company, in the sense that all the employees and the senior executives came together and they started a voluntary program to contribute and create a financial bucket so that in hours of need, the employees could get money. So you can see that one act of kindness can often lead to evolution of corporate and business practices. But we also saw that the word kindness doesn't always necessarily appear on the corporate policy templates or procedural templates because many corporations have different priorities. But you do see word kindness in the case of some hospitals. In UK, we have seen the word kindness in the context of some new generation companies led by real authentic leaders who are interested first in the welfare and the well-being of their employees and their customers and the human element of their enterprise before they will think about profits. In a Turkish company, being respectful was the very fundamental essence of all the collaborative work which is going on in the company. Any employee who showed disrespect had to be dispatched to a coach or a tutor and attend a program on how to be kind and respectful.
Thank you for your time, Professor Lalit Johri, for joining us for this conversation as we delve into a discussion on kindness in leadership. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Stanley.